Soft voice, calm yet piercing. There are nights when silence becomes too loud. When the ticking of the clock doesn't just mark time, it mocks your solitude. You look around, and the world seems like a theater that forgot your scene, a play where your character was cut out without explanation. Loneliness doesn't always arrive with drama. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like fog through a half-open window. You don't see it coming. You just wake up one day and realize the house feels colder, your messages fewer, your laughter recycled. If you're listening to this right now, it's probably because something inside you whispered, I need to feel understood. Not fixed, not advised, just understood. And that, my friend, is the most human thing you could ever want. Walter Riso once said, being alone is not the same as feeling lonely. The first is a choice. The second is an absence, a wound where connection used to live. The difference lies in how you interpret the silence around you. But let's be honest, sometimes the silence feels like punishment. You start asking questions that don't have answers. Why did they stop calling? Why do I always care more? Why do I give love like oxygen and receive it like charity? Loneliness, at its core, isn't about not having people around. It's about the absence of resonance. You can be in a crowded room and still feel like a ghost. You can have hundreds of contacts and still not have one person can call at 2 a.m. and say, I'm not okay. And maybe you try to distract yourself, scrolling through lives that look happier than yours. Try to feel part of something even as you drift further away. But every photo, every smile, every story start to feel like glass walls between you and a world that doesn't seem to need you. But here's the quiet truth. Asterisk, you are not an invisible star. You are simply in a chapter where your presence is teaching you its own worth. You see, loneliness is not the enemy. It's a mirror. It reflects everything you've given away and everything you've forgotten to give yourself. It reminds you that you are not meant to beg for love, but to build it, first within, then outward. Let me tell you something most people never hear. Sometimes, loneliness is a necessary rebellion, a silent revolution against the superficial connections that drain you. It's your soul refusing to be satisfied with noise when it craves meaning. You are not broken for feeling lonely. You are awake. An awakening, my friend, always feels painful before it feels powerful. Maybe, right now, you think your loneliness means something's wrong with you. But what if it's actually the first sign that something right is trying to be born? What if this emptiness is not punishment but preparation? Because every silence hides a seed. Every ache hides a lesson. Every empty space is a doorway. And maybe, just maybe, you are not losing people. You are losing the version of yourself that settled for less than you deserve. So, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit in it. Let it whisper. Ask it, what do you want me to know? Because sometimes the most important conversations happen when no one else is in the room. Stay with me. Don't stop listening yet, because this is only the beginning of something you were meant to understand. Soft pause. The tone deepens. The voice feels closer now, intimate, almost whispering. When loneliness starts living inside you, it rearranges the furniture of your heart. The places that once felt warm become echo chambers. Memories become ghosts that pull up chairs at your dinner table. And suddenly, you start negotiating with your own emotions just to get through another day. You begin to ask yourself strange questions. Am I unlovable? Did I do something wrong? Maybe I expect too much. And in that endless interrogation, you start building walls, subtle, invisible walls. You tell yourself, asterisk, I'm fine. Asterisk, you wear confidence like armor, but underneath, you're tired. So tired. Because pretending not to care is the heaviest performance of all. Walter Riso once wrote, asterisk, emotional independence is not about rejecting love, but about refusing to depend on it to exist. Asterisk, think about that. You can love someone deeply and still know that your worth doesn't live in their eyes. You can crave connection without surrendering your identity. But when loneliness bites, it's hard to believe that, isn't it? You start measuring your value by how often your phone lights up or by how many people think of you on their way somewhere else. You forget that love isn't currency, it's connection. And connection begins with you. Let's tell a truth most people are afraid to say. Sometimes people leave, Not because you failed them, but because your story no longer fits their plot. Sometimes they disappear without warning, and you're left staring at the empty space they once filled, wondering what crime you committed simply by caring too much. But here's the twist. Loneliness is not always loss. Sometimes it's the detox after emotional intoxication. It's your heart cleansing itself from the love it gave recklessly, from the company that wasn't nourishing, from the people who only came for the light and never stayed for the storm. You see, loneliness is a teacher, and like all good teachers, it's strict, silent, and often misunderstood. It teaches you to become your own witness, to observe your thoughts without drowning in them. It forces you to face the noise you've been avoiding. It takes you apart, yes, but only so you can rebuild with truth instead of illusion. Do you remember the last time you sat with yourself and felt comfortable? Not distracted, not anxious, just present. Most of us can't answer that question honestly, because we've been trained to chase company, not companionship with ourselves. And yet, in the moments when you finally stop running, something extraordinary happens. The silence that once suffocated you begins to soothe you. The emptiness that once terrified you becomes canvas. You begin to notice your own breathing, your heartbeat, your pulse, small reminders that you are still here, still alive, still capable of feeling, of healing, of beginning again. You realize that loneliness doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. You start noticing the people who make you feel seen instead of just occupied. You learn to walk away from half-hearted conversations, from relationships that sound like echoes, from rooms where you must shrink to fit. You begin to understand something profound. Being alone is not the same as being abandoned. One is solitude, the other is surrender. And solitude, when chosen, is strength disguised as silence. There's a part of you that already knows this truth. It's the part that's tired of pretending, the part that wants peace more than attention, depth more than drama. That part of you isn't lonely, it's awakening. But before that awakening fully arrives, there's a storm, a necessary one. You'll cry without reason. You'll miss people you shouldn't. You'll crave old conversations like they were medicine. But each wave that hits you will leave something behind, a fragment of wisdom, a whisper of resilience. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and notice the silence doesn't hurt anymore. It hums. It breathes with you. It becomes your ally, not your enemy. That's when you'll understand what Riso meant when he said, "Love yourself enough to be alone without feeling empty." Because emptiness, my friend, is not the absence of love. It's the space waiting for it to return home. You are not behind in life. You are not unloved. You are not forgotten. You are simply becoming. So, if you feel lonely tonight, don't fill the space. Feel it. Don't chase a distraction. Listen to the silence. Because somewhere in that silence, the next version of you is whispering, "I'm ready." And when you hear it, when you finally recognize that voice as your own, that's when you'll know this loneliness was never meant to break you. It was meant to bring you back. Pause. The tone shifts, stronger now. A heartbeat of hope begins under the words. You've spent enough time in the dark corners of your own mind. You've listened to the silence. You've faced the ache. And you're still here. That means something. It means there's more strength in you than sadness, more light than you've dared to believe. Let's be honest. Loneliness has tried to convince you that you're unwanted, that you're too much, or maybe not enough, that you've been forgotten. But here's the plot twist. It's been lying to you. Loneliness is persuasive because it wears the voice of your fears. It echoes your insecurities so perfectly that you mistake it for truth. But truth doesn't hurt. It frees. And the truth is this. You are not unloved. You are unseen by those who haven't learned how to look. There's a difference. You've been giving your light to people who only admire the flame, not the fire. You've been offering your heart to those who came with empty hands. You've mistaken attachment for intimacy and attention for affection. But that stops here. Walter Riso once said, "Don't confuse love with dependency, nor company with connection. The heart knows the difference, even when the mind denies it." And maybe, just maybe, this loneliness has been your heart's way of rebelling against all the false connections you've tried to keep alive. You see, there comes a point when loneliness transforms. It stops being a wound and becomes a womb. Something new begins to grow where pain once lived. Self-respect, clarity, peace. You start realizing that not everyone deserves access to you, that not every call should be answered, not every message deserves a reply. You begin protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And then, one ordinary morning, you'll look in the mirror and see something familiar, yet forgotten. Yourself. Not the version of you trying to prove your worth, not the one begging to be chosen, but the real you, the one who exists even when nobody's watching. That's when healing starts to feel like home. You'll rediscover small joys that don't need applause, a sunrise, a cup of coffee that tastes better because you made it for yourself, the freedom of not waiting for someone to text back. These small things, they're the building blocks of peace. And when you begin to enjoy your own company, something magical happens. The world starts reflecting it back. You'll meet people who feel like calm, not chaos. Conversations that don't drain you, but expand you. You'll stop chasing and start attracting. Because energy, like emotion, is magnetic, and self-love has its own gravity. But don't rush the process. Healing isn't cinematic. It's slow, repetitive, sometimes painfully quiet. Some days, you'll feel strong. Other days, you'll feel like you're back where you started. But listen to me carefully. You're not back at the beginning. You're just revisiting a chapter with wiser eyes. Loneliness will still knock sometimes. It doesn't vanish. It evolves. It visits not to haunt you, but to remind you, don't abandon yourself again. It's not a curse anymore. It's a compass. Every time you feel that ache in your chest, instead of asking who's missing, try asking, what part of me am I neglecting? Because often, the love you miss from others is the love you've stopped giving yourself. You were never meant to be half of anyone. You were born whole, even if the world made you forget it. The task isn't to find your other half. It's to return to your completeness. And from that completeness, share love. Don't seek it like air. You'll know you've reached this point when solitude no longer scares you. When you can sit in a cafe alone, smile, and not feel exposed. When you can walk through a crowd and not crave recognition. When your peace becomes non-negotiable. That's not loneliness anymore. That's liberation. Because here's the great irony. Once you stop fearing loneliness, you stop feeling it. You realize it was never about being alone. It was about being disconnected from yourself. You, my friend, are the company you've been waiting for. The world will still disappoint you. People will still leave. There will be quiet nights, unanswered calls, unspoken words. But this time, it won't shatter you. You'll breathe. You'll smile. You'll whisper, I've been here before. I know my way through the dark. And maybe, just maybe, that's what true strength looks like. Not the absence of loneliness, but the ability to walk through it and still choose love. Because now you understand loneliness isn't a punishment. It's an initiation, a passage, a sacred silence through which your soul learns to sing again. But the story isn't over yet. There's one more truth waiting for you, the one that turns your loneliness into purpose. Stay with me for the last part, because this is where everything changes. Quietly, a deep inhale. Then, with the warmth of someone who has seen the darkness and found their way out, you've walked through silence and survived it. You've faced the ache and made peace with its voice. Now comes a final truth, the one that loneliness never wanted you to discover. You were never truly alone. Not once. Not for a second. Because the moment you sat in that stillness and began listening, not to the noise outside, but to the quiet inside, you met the only person who was always there. You. We spend so much of our lives chasing validation, running after people, believing that our worth depends on who stays. But loneliness, in its cruel disguise, was only trying to lead you back home, to the self you abandoned when you thought love meant losing yourself. Walter Rizzo once wrote, asterisk, to love intelligently is to love without disappearing. Asterisk, and now you understand what that means. You don't have to vanish to be loved. You don't have to shrink to fit someone's comfort. You don't have to silence your truth just to be accepted. The love you deserve, the real one, will never demand that you erase yourself. Loneliness has been a long and painful teacher, but it has taught you the sacred art of presence. the ability to sit with your own company and not feel lesser, to enjoy silence not as emptiness, but as space, space where new dreams can grow, space where healing can breathe, space where your spirit can stretch after years of being folded. Now you can see that every moment of solitude was training. Every tear was sculpting you into someone who doesn't beg for crumbs when they can bake their own bread, someone who doesn't chase ghosts, but builds gardens, someone who no longer says, "Please stay," but whispers, "I'll be okay if you go." And that's when the magic begins. When you no longer depend on others to feel alive, the world opens itself to you differently. You start to attract people who mirror your peace instead of your wounds. You begin conversations that don't exhaust you, but expand you. You create boundaries that protect your joy instead of walls that isolate you. You stop being a victim of your loneliness and become the author of your solitude. Because now, solitude is not a punishment. It's your kingdom, a place where you are safe, whole, unapologetically real. You see, the universe has a strange way of testing us. It will strip away the noise so we can hear our own voice. It will close doors we beg to keep open so we can learn to build our own. It will let us feel unloved until we start loving ourselves enough to never settle again. And that's what's happening right now. You are not losing people. You are losing versions of yourself that no longer fit your destiny. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. The loneliness that once felt unbearable, it was a signal, a sacred nudge from life saying, it's time to remember who you are. And who you are is not fragile. You are not just a person looking for love. You are love itself. You are the same energy that heals, that creates, that connects. You are the pulse behind every heartbeat that ever whispered, asterisk, keep going, asterisk. Maybe you've been through betrayal. Maybe you've been ghosted, rejected, forgotten. Maybe you've sat in the dark and wondered if anyone would ever see you again. But listen to me now. You see you, that's enough. You hear your own heartbeat. You are here. That's power. The world will tell you that being alone is something to fix, that silence is a void. But silence isn't a void, it's a voice. And if you listen closely, it's saying, you have always been enough. You're not defined by who loves you, but by how you love yourself through every empty room. You are not defined by who walked away, but by how you stood after they did. You are not defined by your loneliness, but by how you turned it into light. So, tonight, if you feel that familiar ache, don't fight it. Breathe it in. Smile at it. Say, thank you for showing me what I needed to see. Because now you know that loneliness is not the absence of love. It's the invitation to love more deeply, beginning with you. And when you finally understand that, you stop waiting for someone to complete you. You stop chasing ghosts and start building a life that feels like home. You become the kind of person whose presence feels like peace, because you've learned peace alone. So, if you're listening to this right now, remember, you've already survived the worst part. You've already walked through the darkness and found your own hand to hold. You are not lost. You are rediscovered. You are not lonely. You are reborn. One day soon, someone will look at you and feel safe, not because you feel their emptiness, but because you know how to live with your own. And that, my friend, is what real love looks like. So close your eyes, inhale the silence, exhale the past, and whisper to yourself, softly, like a secret you're ready to believe, I am whole, I am loved, I am enough, because you are, you always were. And now, finally you know it. The voice now carries warmth and gravity. It's no longer whispering. It's steady, grounded, almost luminous. You can hear peace in every word. You've walked through the storm. You've tasted silence, burned through emptiness, and stitched your heart back together with threads of patience. And now you stand at the threshold of something new. Loneliness, once your shadow, now walks behind you instead of beside you. It follows quietly, a reminder, not a ruler, because you've learned its language. You've translated its ache into understanding, its silence into strength, its absence into awareness. Let me tell you something the world rarely does. You will feel lonely again. Yes, even after all this growth, even after finding your peace. Because loneliness isn't a monster you kill. It's a visitor. And sometimes when life shifts, when people change, when dreams evolve, it knocks again. But this time you won't fear it. You'll open the door, offer a seat, and say, I know you, but I don't live where I used to. Because now you have roots, deep ones. You know who you are, and you build a home within yourself that no one can evict you from. Walter Riso once said, emotional autonomy means knowing that you can love without losing yourself and be alone without feeling incomplete. That's the destination you've been walking toward, not perfection, not endless company, but inner freedom. The kind of freedom that lets you walk through a city alone and still feel connected to the pulse of life. The kind of freedom that lets you love someone deeply and still keep your identity intact. The kind of freedom that whispers, I belong to myself first. You start realizing that love doesn't have to mean attachment, that solitude isn't isolation. It's intimacy with your own existence. You start savoring quiet mornings without anxiety, unshared sunsets without longing. You start laughing alone, not because you've given up on people, but because you've remembered how to be whole without them. You see, life isn't about finding a permanent escape from loneliness. It's about transforming it into something sacred. Loneliness, when embraced, becomes creativity. It becomes clarity. It becomes prayer. You write. You paint. You walk. You think. You grow. And through that quiet growth, you reconnect with something ancient, the pulse of the universe moving inside you. Because the truth is, you were never meant to fill every silence. You were meant to listen to it. Inside every pause, there's a message. Inside every ache, there's direction. Inside every loss, there's renewal. The ones who have never been lonely will never understand depth. They'll never know what it means to rebuild from silence. But you are one of the rare souls who does. You carry empathy like a second heartbeat. You notice the invisible things, the tremble behind a smile, the longing behind a laugh. Because you felt it. You've lived it. And that's what loneliness leaves behind when it's done breaking you open. Wisdom star. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that sits quietly in your chest and reminds you what truly matters. It teaches you to look at people differently, to love them not for how they make you feel, but for who they are, to let go without bitterness, to forgive without waiting for an apology, to stay open even when life has taught you to close. That's power. That's maturity. That's peace. And when love returns, and it will, you'll greet it with a calm smile, not a desperate grasp. You'll say, you're welcome here, but you're not my oxygen. I already know how to breathe. Because you do. Because you've learned the most important lesson loneliness could ever teach you. That you are the love you were always searching for. So let this be your new ritual. Each time you feel alone, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your heart. Each time you feel forgotten, whisper to yourself, I remember me. Each time you crave connection, give some kindness to yourself, to a stranger, to life. Because connection begins wherever love is offered, even silently. One day, you'll look back and realize that this chapter, the one you thought was your ending, was actually your beginning. The day you sat with your loneliness was the day you met your truest self. The day you stopped begging for love was the day you started embodying it. So, tonight, if your heart still aches a little, that's okay. Let it. A heart that feels is a heart that's alive. And being alive, truly alive, is the greatest gift of all. Look at you, still standing, still open, still capable of love. You, who thought you were broken, have become unshakable. You, who thought you were alone, have become light for others in their darkness. This, my friend, is your transformation. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. The kind of change that doesn't need to be seen to be real. So the next time you feel lonely, remember this. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not unloved. You are becoming. And sometimes becoming looks a lot like being alone. Because solitude is not the absence of love. It's the seedbed of it. It's where your roots find water. It's where your soul learns to breathe. It's where your light begins to shine from within. And that light, your light, will guide you through every shadow that tries to return. So breathe, smile, walk forward. You've made it through loneliness, and you found the most important person in the world, yourself. And now, finally, it's time to live.